Today, we will talk about a government that began with a coup and ended with a coup after 55 years. The regime of Hafez al-Assad and Bashar al-Assad during this 55-year period served as a platform for countries like Iran, Russia, North Korea, and the United States. During this time, nearly 500,000 people lost their lives due to these conflicts and battles. Approximately 6 million people have been displaced around the world. The bloody coup of 1970, the bloody coups of 1976, and the bloody coup of 2011 are all stains on our history. But the questions that arise are, what will bring an end to Bashar al-Assad's regime? And can the group or front known as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham effectively govern and control the Syrian state? Will internal conflicts arise again? The groups that have emerged within Syria and currently have a military presence, will they engage with the government of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham? These are the questions we will try to answer in this program. Additionally, will the Fatimiyun, Zainabiyun, and Hezbollah militias of Lebanon leave the Syrian government to its own devices, or will the war escalate again? Let's talk in the current program about it.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa sallallahu ta'ala ala khayr khalqihi Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
Today we are discussing the coups, or discussing the regime that began with coups and ended with coups after 55 years. We will take a brief look at the regime of Bashar al-Assad and his father, Hafez Assad. What reasons led to the shortening of the rule of the Bashar al-Assad and Hafez Assad family? We will also review the factors that caused millions of people to become displaced in Syrian territory, and thousands to be drawn into the bloodshed during this time. In order to briefly review history and reach a unified conclusion, we aim to understand what has led to the downfall of Bashar al-Assad's government. Let's go back to the years of 1930s. Yes, dear friends, 1930 is the year of Hafez Assad's birth, the father of Bashar al-Assad. After completing his education, Hafez Assad joined the Ba'ath Party in 1953, means this was about 7 or 8 years after Syria gained independence from France. He remained in the party for a while and served as the commander of the Air Force during this time. In 1963, he was appointed as the Minister of Defense in the government of Nur-Din Atassi. He remained as the Minister of Defense in the government of Nur-Din Atassi for 6 years. However, in 1969, he staged a coup that led to the end of Nur-Din Atassi's regime and the beginning of Hafez Assad's rule. If you review the period from Syria's independence until Hafez Assad came to power, you will see that Syria was constantly embroiled in internal conflicts. Countries in the region, both directly and indirectly, were involved in the Syrian political system. But after Hafez Assad came to power, he was someone who had experienced 2 coups and was primarily a military figure. He understood where the weaknesses lay and how to suppress the opposition parties operating within Syria, and the countries that pursue their goals within Syria through these factions. But how and through which means can they suppress them? This led to a popular movement in 1976 against Hafez al-Assad's regime, with the people questioning why a minority should govern the majority. Hafez Assad belonged to the Alawite Shia community, which constituted a minority in Syria. However, as a military man, he began to kill and suppress the people. This took the cause of fear and terror in the hearts of the Syrian people, especially among those who were freedom-seeking. As a result, many of them dispersed to neighboring countries. After that, Hafez Assad focused on building a strong regime and military within Syria. It should also be noted that countries like the Soviet Union, China, and North Korea supported Hafez al-Assad's regime, either directly or indirectly. It is worth mentioning that Bashar al-Assad, the 5th son of Hafez al-Assad, was born in 1965 in Damascus. And after completing his education, he studied engineering for a while and then completed his studies in medicine. However, Bashar al-Assad traveled to London to further enhance his academic knowledge. After arriving of Bashar al-Assad in London, he began studying ophthalmology. But in 1994, Bashar al-Assad's older brother died in a car accident. This caused a stir in Syria at a time when Hafez al-Assad, his father, was still alive. There were discussions about Bashar al-Assad's sister, who was very close to their father, and his father loved her dearly. They wanted her to take over the regime after Hafez al-Assad. However, this was a controversial issue because the people were not yet ready for a woman to serve as president in the Syrian government. Thus, Bashar al-Assad was asked to return to his homeland. In late 1999 or early 2000, Hafez Assad passed away, and the elections take place, which most people considered to be a farce. After these elections, Bashar al-Assad came to power. The people had hopes for Bashar al-Assad, as he was educated in the West, and he was indeed the same. In the first 6 months of his rule, he began to expand the internet, promote newspapers, and emphasize freedom of expression. However, he later realized that opposition forces and groups were forming against his government in various fronts and locations. In 2003, the Kurds in northern and northeastern Syria took a stand against Bashar al-Assad's government. They formed a party and they renowned it, the Democratic Union Party. They had two main objectives: to defend the rights of the Kurds and to seek freedoms that had been restricted during Bashar al-Assad's rule. In 2005 BC, the government of Lebanon supported Bashar al-Assad's regime. Another point I would like to share with you is that until 2005 BC, Bashar al-Assad's army had a military presence in Lebanon from the time of Hafez al-Assad's rule. This military presence continued until the assassination of the Lebanese Minister of Defense. The people rise up against Bashar al-Assad's regime and demanding freedom. As a result, Bashar al-Assad is compelled to end his military presence in Lebanon. However, in 2005 BC, Lebanon supported Bashar al-Assad's government, particularly Lebanese Hezbollah. In 2006 BC, another group called ISIS emerged, which I will refer to as the Islamic State with the black flag due to YouTube restrictions. Some say their presence in Syria has been noted since 2003. They called themselves the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria and aimed to confront Bashar al-Assad's government and bring an end to it. Gradually, the Islamic State gains power, although its presence is mysterious and it is unclear which countries support it. Gradually, they took the power. However, what weakens the Islamic State is the presence of other groups in Syria. Among them are the Kurds, who constituted 10 to 18% of Syria's influence. Also, other groups such as Jaishul Islam, Erarul Islam, Jabhat al-Nusra, and Tahrir Sham also contribute to weakening the Islamic State. The Kurds play a significant role in diminishing the power of the Islamic State. It is also worth noting that in 2012, the Kurds seized northern and northeastern Syria. And in 2016, they established an administration called the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria. Alongside the Kurdish Autonomous Administration, other groups, including some Christians and Arabs, also joined. In 2017, Jabhat al-Nusra merged with several other groups that opposed Bashar al-Assad's government to form a party called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. At the head of this party is Abu Muhammad al-Julani. Abu Muhammad al-Julani had previously been part of al-Qaeda and spent some time in prison. He had also briefly been with the Islamic State. However, in 2017, he took the lead of this group and began its activities. Iran's presence in Syria should not be overlooked. Iran had a direct presence through its militias and military forces, and it also supported Bashar al-Assad's government indirectly. Iran was sending weapons to Bashar al-Assad's regime. Additionally, the Fatemiyun militia from Afghanistan, the Zainabiyun militia from Pakistan, and Hezbollah from Lebanon provided support. They framed this war as a defense of the sanctity of the family of the Prophet. It is also worth noting that Russia was a supporter of Bashar al-Assad's government. Russia wanted to maintain its presence in the region for several reasons. First, it had a military or naval base in the city of Tartus, which was Russia's first base, and allowed it to maintain its presence in the Mediterranean. And second, it aimed to preserve its influence in Syria. And third, it sought to counteract Islamic groups that posed a threat to Russia in the region. The presence of the United States, following the September 11th attacks in Iraq and also along the borders of Syria, even in the territories of Syria, should not be overlooked. However, in 2014, the United States began supporting groups within Syria to suppress its opponents and to support Israel and Jordan while maintaining its influence in the region. Turkey, as Erdogan stated in his speech, initially supported Bashar al-Assad's government. However, over time, Turkey became a staunch opponent of Bashar al-Assad's government. The reason for this change was that they questioned why Bashar al-Assad was not effectively protecting his borders and why he was not suppressing the freedom-seeking Kurdish fronts. This led Turkey to conduct 3 major operations on Syrian soil to suppress the Kurds. But a pivotal moment for Bashar al-Assad's regime came in 2011 BC with the Arab Spring, which began in Africa and peaked in Syria. The people rose up against Bashar al-Assad's government. However, Bashar al-Assad employed the tactics of his father and began to massacre the people. In these years, between 370 to 550,000 people are martyred and lose their lives. Additionally, nearly 6 million people become displaced and wander. Of these, 3.5 million take refuge in neighboring countries like Turkey and Iraq and other countries, while the remainder heads to European countries. Bashar al-Assad manages to maintain his oppressive and tyrannical regime for some time. However, the decline of Bashar al-Assad's government begins in early 2018. Gradually, groups within Syria gain strength. Some of these operate behind the scenes, while others take up arms openly. The government of Bashar al-Assad targets those who are at the forefront of these fronts. Some of these groups or these people are completely destroyed, while others see their armies merge with other groups. For example, the groups Jaishul Islam and Ahrarul Islam, along with others, have their leaders targeted. This leads to the armies of these fronts either joining other groups or being entirely annihilated. Nevertheless, some other forces gradually gain influence at the borders and even within Damascus. This ultimately results in Bashar al-Assad's government falling within 9 days in December 2024. At the head of this front was Abu Muhammad al-Julani, a 43-year-old man whose real name is Ahmad Shahram. Abu Muhammad al-Julani, although we mentioned earlier that he had been part of 2 other groups, he had a military presence and spent some time in prison. His presence brings an end to a tyrannical, oppressive, and bloodthirsty regime that gave no credibility to the people's votes. The regime of Hafez Assad began with coups and ends after 55 years with other coups. This was the story of Hafez Assad's government, which I briefly shared with you, my friends. While our series includes programs like Ahsanul Qasas and topics about the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the honored Prophet, this program was dedicated to provide you with some information to reflect upon.
Assalamu alaikum.